Okay, so moving on. Like Daniel's speech, and among others, of course, the next speaker would like to highlight the opportunities that lies ahead of us now, given the fact that the industry is about to see a humongous change. The next speaker is also one of the most appreciated keynotes from last year, where he held a presentation about Open Internet 1.0. Now we will see the sequel. So here is Quantcast CEO Konrad Feldman, direct from the West Coast, I assume, and he will present the Open Internet 2.0. Give him a big hand for waking up so early in the morning.
Hi, thank you. I am trying to share my screen, but it has been disabled. Can someone allow me to share my screen? Okay. There you go. You can see me. Well, good afternoon. I'm Konrad Feldman, co-founder and CEO at Quantcast. Quantcast is the creator of an intelligent audience platform that publishers, brands, and agencies around the world use to better understand and engage audiences online and radically simplify the business of digital advertising. So I last spoke with you almost a year ago, and I presented a rallying cry for the open internet. And I would be delighted if we could all move on from that. But the truth is that this remains a major problem, and one that's going to take many years to successfully resolve. It's going to require repetition, continued exploration of the core issues, and collaboration. So what I'd like to do today is revisit some of that message from last year with the benefit of us all having experienced a hectic year of activity in the world of digital advertising and advertising technology. The open internet is the most powerful mechanism for free expression our world has ever seen. Anyone with access can share their point of view, their content, and their creativity. And today, over 5 billion people around the world have widespread, free access to information, entertainment, news, and education, all because of the open internet. The internet's ability to shape our world is every bit as powerful as other transformational technologies, such as the printing press, electricity, and semiconductors. And more so than any of those, the internet has democratized this awesome power. With its ubiquitous availability and instant delivery to whatever screen we choose, it's easy to forget just how much work goes into making all that great content available to us. In fact, it seems likely that many haven't forgotten this. They simply never realized it in the first place. Last year, I described this as our industry's original sin. I don't think much has changed in this past year. I still frequently have people tell me that the internet isn't free because they pay a bill each month to their internet provider. Others point out they pay a subscription to access content, and many of us may be fortunate enough to be able to do so. But that only accounts for a tiny fraction of the sites we visit. And in most cases, subscriptions only pay for a portion of the cost of operating that site. And most importantly, the majority of the 5 billion people accessing the internet today are not in a position to pay subscription fees for every site that they can benefit from accessing. While it's clear that the poor job our industry has done in explaining the benefits and necessity of responsible advertising means that this is scarcely recognized, it is of course advertising that underpins the viability and vibrancy of this free and open internet, and it is advertising technology that ensures that any advertiser can help fund the vital work internet publishers do in producing content that engages, entertains, and satisfies the curiosity of audiences worldwide. In the past year, where so many industries and businesses have suffered, digital advertising has grown by some 20%. It's estimated to reach about 400 billion euros in 2021. But much of this growing ad spend is not funding a diverse and thriving open internet. Instead, it continues to flow disproportionately to a tiny handful of tech giants. Disproportionate, that is, relative to where consumers spend their time and where original content is created. These companies have, of course, built compelling services that we use every day. They have also used their privileged data position and AI expertise to create advertising solutions that work exceptionally well for advertisers. What's more, they've built systems that make it incredibly easy for advertisers to spend their money within these companies' walled gardens. Is that enough for them? Perhaps. Perhaps not. The tech giant's span of influence and control over the entire digital ecosystem allows them to make changes which can make it easier or harder for all publishers, advertisers, and agencies to operate outside of the walled gardens. And that's because some of these companies increasingly act as digital gatekeepers. Through the operating systems and web browsers that we have to use to access any content on the open internet, these companies make decisions that dictate how audiences and advertising on the open internet can be measured, delivered, and improved. And they do this at the same time that they also operate large media and advertising businesses themselves. Through the choices that they solely make, they effectively set the rules by which everyone else can compete for the advertising budgets that fund the content, education, and discourse that society depends on. Are their decisions altruistic as claimed? Perhaps. Could they be influenced, directly or indirectly, by a desire to capture a greater share of ad budgets? Well, it certainly seems possible. After all, in the pursuit of growth, it seems reasonable to imagine these digital gatekeepers would aspire to a similar share of the ad budgets on consumers' devices as they currently derive from all the apps that must use their stores. So how might such unilateral decisions impact the flow of ad budgets? Let's take a look. In April this year, with the launch of iOS 14.5, Apple introduced their app tracking transparency framework. You will have seen this as your apps asking you, based on language selected by Apple, whether you want it to be tracked. In seeking consent from consumers for their own advertising products, Apple uses a different interface than everyone else is able to, asking if you'd like to turn on personalized ads. This was introduced just a few weeks ago. It's too early to tell what the impact of this iOS 15 change will be. But when iOS 14.5 was introduced this past April, there was a lot of speculation about the impact that this change may have on the competitive dynamics of the app advertising market. Well, it's 6 months since then, and we don't need to speculate anymore. Just last week, the Financial Times reported that the changes that Apple made in April had created a windfall for their business, their words. The accompanying data shows how Apple's share of search ad installs has doubled in just 6 months, starting, presumably not coincidentally, when iOS 14.5 rolled out. This is a big deal. For perspective, Apple has gained more share in the past 6 months than they have in the entirety of their ads business existence. They didn't do this with the type of innovation that allowed them to offer more competitive customer acquisition dynamics to marketers. In fact, it seems likely from the data that customer acquisitions have gone up for marketers, which will result in higher costs for consumers. Rather, they achieved this through a decision they made regarding how software that is integral to how consumers access the internet operates. Whether this outcome is intentional or coincidental is for others to decide, but it clearly demonstrates the power, influence, and control that these tech giants wield. And it's not limited to apps, of course, as everyone knows. Apple's Safari browser stopped supporting third-party cookies some time ago. Today, the vast majority of impressions from the Safari browser don't support third-party cookies. This is a big deal because third-party cookies have historically formed the basis by which audiences are understood and advertising impressions are measured and maximized. Today, website visitors using a Safari browser are far less valuable to a publisher than the average visitor. Safari users are essentially having their access to content subsidized by all the other internet users. And so it's really not that surprising that when Google previously announced that they too, via their Chrome browser, would deprecate third-party cookies, it sent shockwaves through the industry. Chrome represents the majority of all open internet media consumption. If it becomes much harder for advertisers to effectively deploy budgets on the open internet, then it seems likely that the budgets will flow even more so to the walled gardens. So these unilateral changes have huge consequences. Could it be through the control of the operating system and browsers, the very infrastructure that we all use to access the open internet, that these tech giants can enforce changes that disadvantage everyone but themselves? Possibly. This is increasingly a topic of investigation for government agencies around the world. While the motivation for these changes may be innocent, we should be under no illusion that the tech giants would far prefer there was no open internet. Direct control of access to content, for example, via an app store, or indirectly, by controlling the ad tech stack, and hence how advertising budgets are directed, would suit them very well. This approach, effectively digital colonization, allows the tech giants to set the rules of the road, as well as the tolls for the road, and reap the benefits. Colonization rarely works out for those who are colonized. And here we are talking about the entirety of the open internet, millions of websites, billions of consumers, and hundreds of billions of euros of advertising spend that funds content and is a primary driver of global economic growth. Do we really want all of that controlled by a handful of giant corporations? I believe most people would agree that we don't. Wanting change and achieving it are different things. Until we address the fundamental reasons why the spend imbalance exists, we cannot reasonably expect marketers who are evaluated on the return on their advertising spend to change their spending habits. And yet it is only this type of change that can help sustain a free and open internet. This is one of the reasons that we at Quantcast are so focused on creating solutions that allow all publishers, all advertisers, and all agencies to access technology that can match the walled gardens for effectiveness, scale, and ease of use. Since we last spoke, the biggest news has undoubtedly been Google's delay to the deprecation of third-party cookies for 2 years until 2023. This is not a reason to sit back. They are still going away. And as we've discussed today, and you've heard in earlier panels, there are already many parts of the open internet, for example, those accessed through the Safari and Firefox browsers, that require alternatives to third-party cookies right now. Visitors from these browsers are already far less valuable to publishers than those for whom third-party cookies are available. This means they contribute less in advertising revenue to support the immense investments that publishers make in producing and hosting the content that we all get to rely on. If every visitor were less valuable to every publisher, it doesn't take a PhD to infer the potential implications for the open internet. This is why we must remain focused and committed to developing sustainable solutions to the essential functions of audience and advertising planning, activation, and measurement, independent of third-party cookies. Now, as the tech giants that operate the browsers currently dictate the rules, the ultimate set of technologies that replace third-party cookies will not come into true focus until those plans are complete, and perhaps not even until those plans are approved by regulators around the world. So, as much as everyone might like certainty, what this undoubtedly means is that we're on a journey, one that may yet contain more unexpected twists and turns. All good journeys should have a reliable companion, a partner that can help navigate complexity, ambiguity, and even the unexpected. For sure, there is still a lot that remains unknown. One thing that we can be fairly sure of is that our notions of identity resolution, understanding, and measuring audiences will need greater flexibility than ever before. And I believe that the most scalable mechanisms for understanding audiences and measuring advertising results will do so using a combination of techniques. In the past year, the rate of new approaches to support a post-cookie world has accelerated, with the proclamations reaching fever pitch. Will it be deterministic email-based identifiers, probabilistic identifiers, cohorts, contextual? Yes, it will be all of these and more, individually and combined. So our systems are going to need the ability to flexibly respond to different types of identity. And they're going to be able to need to operate at different levels of identity resolution simultaneously. Just as we'll need flexibility in resolving identity, we will need enhanced flexibility and sophistication in the interpretation of the signals that are available to us and allow us to understand audience characteristics, behaviors, and intent. So one signal that's getting renewed attention recently is contextual. The idea that we can interpret consumer interest situational. For example, on the basis of the content they're currently consuming. This is a concept as old as advertising itself, and it's regaining its spotlight in the limelight as it's not dependent on third-party cookies. The truth is, context has always been of key importance in creating relevant advertising experiences. It was important with cookies, and it will be even more important without them. However, the existing contextual signals often take the form of content tags that follow predefined taxonomies and can be of low quality. Often these tags are miscategorized, they may not always give an accurate representation, and this can adversely affect the accuracy and scale of contextual segments. The most effective contextual approach is one that directly observes the content on each page and infers the nature of that content. And machine learning technology is rapidly advancing the accuracy of these contextual approaches. The Quantcast platform launched earlier this year, and at its heart is ARA, an AI and machine learning engine that builds predictive audience models, rationally prices advertising opportunities, and autonomously optimizes advertising campaigns. One component of this engine is the ARA topic map. Using the latest developments in natural language processing and deep learning, Aura ingests the messy content of the open internet and organizes it into a high-dimensional context space, which can be used directly by machines for advertising-related analysis and optimization, but also interpreted by humans to gain new understanding and insight. This sort of approach allows for a nuanced and subtle understanding of content across the open internet, with higher fidelity and consistency for understanding context than the coarse predefined contextual labels that are widely used today. Context is just one of the signals that you should be using. While the precise mechanics of the industry post-cookie are yet to come into full view, I am confident that investments made today in improving the quality and diversity of all signals that can be used to understand audiences will be incredibly valuable as our industry evolves. Regardless of what the future holds, we cannot take the open internet for granted, and it is worth fighting for. Quantcast has been at the forefront of developing innovative solutions to the open internet for over a decade, and we welcome this challenge. The Quantcast platform is a fully integrated suite of planning, activation, measurement, and insight tools for audience-centric advertising on the open internet, for today and for our post-cookie future. By providing advanced technologies for all brands, agencies, and publishers, we see a future where that playing field is leveled and the open internet is a true alternative to the walled gardens. As we speak today, within the Quantcast platform, our customers run ads in the open internet with cookieless environments. And this testing early isn't just about preparing for the ultimate demise of cookies. It means that those marketers have the advantage of reaching customers that are inaccessible today through third-party cookies. It provides access to a greater range of inventory, a greater range of audiences, and there's benefits of lower competition in those areas. It really starts with measurement. You can't optimize what you don't measure, and our customers are able to simply activate campaigns in cookieless environments alongside cookied environments, and then clearly see the distribution of spend, impressions, and conversions. So as we wrap up today, I'll leave with my key insights as we champion an open internet together. First, now is not the time to relax and get comfortable. While cookies in Chrome will be around until 2023, already today, a huge portion of the internet is running with no third-party cookies. Investments in cookieless solutions today deliver results today. Companies are using Quantcast and reaching new consumers and delivering more business outcomes than they can with cookies alone. Don't wait. Next, as the industry breaks free of its dependence on third-party data, everyone needs to have more flexibility in interpreting the multitude of signals available to us to help more accurately understand, optimize, and measure audiences and advertising. Finally, it may get clearer and easier over time, but for the foreseeable future, it's going to be murkier and messier. Fortunately, advances in technology such as machine learning and AI can help illuminate the hard to see and tame the complexity by ingesting messy yet information-rich signals and interpreting them consistently to provide a clearer picture so advertisers can make more informed decisions and publishers can better monetize and fund the content that so many billions enjoy. There's a lot of work still to be done, but when that work will lead to a diverse, a diverse and equitable, healthy and sustainable open internet, it's work that is worth us all doing together. The road ahead will have some unexpected turns, but it can, and I believe it will, lead to a brighter future. We're excited to partner with all of you to build the future of the open internet. Thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank you, Konrad, and nice to see you again.
Good to see everyone. I wish I was there in person.
Next year, huh?
Next year, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we spoke last year as well, and I asked you at that time about if you would have a magic wand and you would be able to wish anything and that would come true. What would that be this year?
I think sufficient vaccine supplies for the entire world to get vaccinated quickly. That would be my magic wand. That's step number one.
And in the context of open internet, perhaps.
I think that this is a journey. So it would be great if we had complete clarity on how things are going to operate. There's huge investments that need to be made. The companies that support the open internet are making investments to prepare for a cookieless future. We heard earlier about how important that this works first and foremost for consumers. There's lots of investments that have been made there. And it would be ideal if all of those investments went into work that was going to be productive in the long term. And of course, some of it won't. You have to experiment. Some things won't work. That's fine. But I think still the lack of complete clarity in terms of what solutions will operate and be available means that it's harder than it should be. There's more investment that will get wasted on things that won't be relevant because there's a lack of clarity. And I think that investment will be better made in terms of creating, effective, privacy compliant, consumer-friendly mechanisms for making advertising more relevant and valuable, and thus funding the open internet more effectively.
Sure, I agree with that. And obviously, it's easy to ask questions, and it's more, perhaps in some cases, difficult to answer them. Given that, there is no such thing as a one solution to save the open internet, obviously. And everyone, individual players, stakeholders, etc., will always turn to owner value. That will always be the case. I mean, if we just look at empirical studies. So in order to be really pragmatic and see, to pivot the whole situation and really change the structure and really make it possible to save it, who to turn to? Would it be the political scene? Would it be industry bodies like us? Would it be to Scott Galloway is even suggesting that we should split up the tech players into smaller pieces? I mean, obviously there are needs to and there are ways, but obviously they are more or less likely to happen. But in your view, what would need to happen in order to really make a big change?
So I think to ultimately really make a big change, I mean, the thing that we're focused on, I want to come back to your owner point, I think it's a very good one. To ultimately make a really big change, we have to make it much simpler for advertisers, because of course it is advertisers that fund the open internet. We have to make it much easier for them to deploy their budgets effectively across the fragmented but incredibly rich and diverse content of the open internet.
Can I just comment on that? But because if you look at the big five, they have a larger R&D budget than the Swedish GDP. I'm exaggerating, but it would be nearly impossible unless they would all join in a joint effort against in order to compete. How could you sustain that value of buying in the same way like these giants?
Because the open internet offers rich audiences. It offers different environments, new spaces for reach. The challenge is how you make it as easy to buy. There's a limited number of hours in the day. 400 billion euros is a lot of money to deploy. If we make the open internet easier to buy, advertisers want to spend their money. It's not a benevolent act for them. They want to be able to distribute their budget more effectively. They want to be intentional with where they spend money. It's difficult today. So there's technological solutions that can help. You mentioned another point, and of course, it's true that every corporation is going to be motivated by its need to deliver value to its stakeholders. And I think that that's where competition comes from. But we have to look at the situation where competition can be impeded, deliberately or indirectly by actions. We have to recognize that some of these organizations have a lot of control. I'm not saying anything new here. This is something that's been raised by government agencies, lawmakers, the Justice Department, regulators, and so on around the world. It's something that's been looked at. Of course, that takes time. I think the answer is all of those things. Those will carry on. I think the work that the industry does together to collaborate. I think we do need to simplify the process. I mean, our goal is if you can radically simplify the mechanisms by which advertisers can deploy budgets successfully, help them achieve scale and results that are comparable to what they can achieve in the walled gardens, but make it simple. Then the money will flow. And that's what we're really focused on. It takes collaboration. It takes people working together to achieve that. And that's obviously challenging. I think it's been particularly challenging the last 18 months, but I think as we get back to in person, I think we'll start to improve on those things.
And
but
you know what?
That's why it's a journey.
That's why IAB exists.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. With that, thank you so much, Konrad. Again.
Thank you. Great to see everyone.